to be back in 2022 with our newest kind of podcast. And our guest today is Jamie Walker, and I'm so pleased that he's been able to join us. I've known you for quite a while now, Jamie, haven't I? But I suppose our paths have crossed maybe a bit more recently in the sense of we've got to know each other a bit more. But obviously, loads of our listeners won't know who you are. So could you have
none of them probably?
Yeah, they might do. Just say a little bit about yourself and where you're based.
Okay, so I am based at Finchampstead Baptist Church. Finchampstead's kind of near Reading, Wokingham kind of way. And it's a big community centre building that we operate out of, which is loads of fun. So we've got like a cafe and a library, and it's a children's centre. And it's a really fun place to work from. I sort of moved from, I came up, God played a bit of a trick on me. He's clever like this, God. Came up here to do sport and community work, because that's kind of my background. And then slowly meandered into youth work. And now I'm kind of coordinating youth and kids and family ministries at FBC, which is a whole new learning curve. It's fun.
Cool. And so, I mean, I think it's really interesting, like your church, in the sense of there's not many churches that also operate as like the real kind of hub of the community in that way. So do you do both work like out in the community and based in your with the church young people?
Yeah, so I do schools work and stuff like that. To be honest, it sounds really arrogant, this. We are a big part of the community because there ain't much in Finch. So like when I remember seeing the community centre picture when I came up for the interview, I checked them out online and I thought, oh, this is like at least town centre. And then you drive to find, and it's kind of down a weird little road, and you're like, oh, it's like there's loads of houses, and then just plonk down in the middle of this huge, really nice community centre. So we do a lot of community activities in house, if that makes sense with you. So it's not like we do tons of detached. I don't do loads of detached work, but a lot of what we do at the centre anyway is with young people from all aspects of our community, because they've grown up coming along to stuff at FBC. So we've had a pretty strong kids ministry from before I got here carrying through. So they've all got pretty, they know us pretty well, which is cool. So there's the Sunday kind of thing, and then it's broader than that as well, which is great. I love it.
Yeah, no, that's great. It is quite unusual in that it feels like very much that the church is just part of the community family in that way, I suppose, would be a way of looking at it.
Yeah, because there's like, other than us, there's a co-op and a petrol station and like a pub which is a little bit out of the way. So there's really ain't much to do in Finch, right? So it's like there's not another cafe or other things like that. So it does play a big role with the community, and we've been blessed. Like there's local schools that do a lot of stuff from where we are. Like the children's centre is incredible because we just get to like, they do amazing work, and we can cheer them on and help where we can. And yeah, it's really cool. I think it's it's pretty unique, but it's a kind of cool model to run like, I don't know, that local authority stuff with church stuff can be difficult, but it's kind of working pretty well, I reckon.
Yeah, no, that's great. But that's obviously you're not from Finch, and
No.
I know that like Finch is kind of quite a mixed community in the sense of socioeconomic demographics and that kind of thing. But am I right in guessing or sensing that maybe the church is more middle class than maybe some of its community?
Yeah, so I mean Finch as a broad brushstrokes affluent place. It's an expensive place to live, and there's kind of pockets of social housing and stuff like that in and around. Like every community, there's a broad range of people represented, but like majority of people, there's a lot of people who travel into the city to work, like kind of commuter town in some ways. And yeah, I think church as a whole and FBC church, we kind of it's a pretty middle class environment. The easiest thing for us to do is to set up middle class environments, which is not really that's not how I grew up. So I'm from an estate called Lee Park, beautiful estate just outside Portsmouth, sort of like 35,000 people on this big council estate, and it's amazing. I loved growing up there, but it was massively different. And that transferring from, like, no one in Berkshire thinks it's funny that Burke is the first part of Berkshire. They just don't think it's funny. And I think that is funny. And coming up, everything was different, Nate. Like even the graffiti, say. So the graffiti where I was growing up, what can I say? There's like, I was here I was I here? Yes, I was. That was the good stuff. And I came up and I remember I was going for a run. I went over this train bridge and the graffiti just said, "Feminism is equality." I was like, whoa, this is amazing. Even the graffiti is teaching me stuff here, people. But it was like, there's loads of things that were just kind of different. So it's been a kind of a learning curve in that, which I found fun, I think.
That's hilarious. And because I heard you speak at the National Youth Ministry weekend last year, and I really loved and enjoyed listening to you talk about it's like our youth work middle class and what does that actually, you teased out some bits, and I don't know if you can remember anything that you said. It was really good. It would be really great if you could share.
Yeah, of course.
Would hear this because it was great.
Yeah, no worries. So I mean, I think there's some things that we just are key parts of kind of middle class culture and values that we perhaps put in ministry without, we just assume that's good. There's things that we value and we kind of port them across. And I think, so like education is huge. I remember telling young people here, I couldn't believe how stressed they were about mocks, for example. Like I was pretty impressed if I showed up for a mock. It was just, I was thinking, right, don't do too good on the mock because you leave yourself nowhere to go. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to over-promise, underachieve. But so I remember telling them, don't worry, it's just a mock, do you even need to revise? And that was like the year that the mocks were their GCSE results. But luckily they listened to me. And I think this high value on education, like education is obviously a really good thing, but the way it shows up in youth ministry is that we love teaching. We teach. And it's kind of like the pinnacle of every service. This is my, it's not me pointing fingers, this is what I do as well. I've noticed in myself, it all leads up to the teaching bit, the preaching bit. Even the small groups will go for a book. If you really want a young person to know about God, just send them on the Alpha course. It's kind of, and I'm not saying that's necessarily bad, but like, I wouldn't have been very interested in a course as a 14-year-old, if I'm honest with you. I was interested in avoiding my coursework. And like, school's a lot of fun, but like probably a bit too much fun, if I'm honest with you, like get into trouble and stuff like that. But I don't know, I think that's interesting how that pops up, and so much so that I think if we think, well, if we're not teaching in people, what do we do? And I think there's a massive space, there's so much room for creativity in youth work, in showing young people the love of God, not just telling them about it. And I think the analogy I use in that is sometimes we can be like, we're trying to teach young people about food. So there's this cake, and we watch MasterChef, watch how they make it. We read the recipe, maybe we go and think about how that might taste. We've got the cake, and we could just give it to them.
Yeah.
And we could just say, right, here's God, go. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's been challenging for me thinking through some of these things because like I have to figure out how to apply them. Not loads of answers. I'm trying to remember now what we were thinking. Oh, like structure and stuff. We're really structured, which is really, really good. Don't get me wrong. Like I think the value of structure, it has really helped. Like safeguarding practices are really good, and that's so important. And there's loads of value in creating great policies and everything like that, and for it. But like, if you came 10 minutes late to one of my events, there's some cases where you couldn't get in. Literally, the door would be locked. And actually, some young people, the time is just whatever. Do you know what I mean? And how do we make space for people that don't fit into the mold that we create in youth ministry? So yeah, I've kind of been processing some of those things and trying to figure out what that looks like. Past just saying is there a way we can do this differently? Like how does it physically look to to reach people that aren't currently showing up at youth. They're not currently in our church. I think maybe the first thing is to say, who's not represented from our community in our youth group space? Like, where's the space? We know there's loads of young people from this community or from here, and they're not in church. What's the barrier? What's the blockage there?
Yeah, but even for the young people that are coming along, or for the children as well, I always think, like, with children's ministry, it's so much more important that they know that they're loved, like you were saying, rather than that they're taught about it. And it's a real change of language, isn't it? But like, I know lots of young people, they kind of they'll bear with the God slot, or they'll sit through some of the teaching stuff just because their mates are all there. But we'll be kidding ourselves if we think they're going to hang around post 18. And so actually it's not just those that aren't in the church, it's those that are kind of putting up with church for all of the good stuff that they get from it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've never met anyone that got saved by an IB lessons. You know what I mean? I was just sitting in year 8 and she just explained the Trinity and it blew my mind. I've not heard that, but like, I mean, it might be out there. If that's you, God bless you. That's great. For me, like, I remember being at school and being told I was, what do you call it? Like an active learner? I forgot there's a better name.
A kinesthetic.
Kinesthetic learner. Do you know one of the first things they said is that's the most likely learning time to go to prison? I was like, oh, thanks. That's just what I need to know. But kinesthetic learning, how do we incorporate that into that? I'm always blown away by prayer spaces where you just get out of the way. Like, we've both done some work with Soulscape in schools, and you just go into like a class, and however rowdy they are or noisy they are, 5 or 10 minutes in, you get this incredible quiet, this space which they just do not connect with in any other sphere of their life. There's no other quiet time to think about God stuff, and it's amazing, and you don't have to do anything. I mean, I'm about that.
It's so powerful. Every time I do the prayer spaces, it kind of blows me away, because and I always at the end I offer a chance if they want a blessing, and I explain what a blessing is. And even those that don't believe in God, they're like, oh yeah, we'll have one of them. Like, it's...
give me 2. Okay. I found them really deep times, and I think actually, as like for youth workers out there, it's a hard thing to get out of the way. And to take yourself out of the place of being the person that needs to have the answers, as opposed to like the person asking the questions. Because my thing with like this small church in general, and like generationally, like, there's so much content, so much, and actually young people are amazing researchers. And part of what I want to do is give them the right questions, create curiosity about Jesus, so that they can, and help them in that. Don't just leave them to some random corner of the internet, which isn't going to be helpful. But like, just recognizing that you can do a lot of this, and you don't need to be like a plaster cast of me. This is your faith, and I think we all go through that at some point, right? We kind of go, I don't want to regurgitate what I've been told. I need to own this. I think actually the younger we can do that, encouraging people to question and experience, and like find spaces where those conversations can be alive. And yes, exciting.
It's a key part of adolescence. That kind of it's one of the sort of key aspects of their faith. They have to own it for themselves. But I think you're right. We do get worried that they might come to the wrong answer or something like that. It's like we lose trust in God, that God might actually be able to sort that out for God's self in that way. And so I think that is interesting. How can we get out of the way so that God can do what God needs to do?
Totally. And of course they're going to come to a different answer than us, because we didn't get there all at once.
No.
And of course they're going to come to a different answer because we're not right all the time. Do you know what I mean? And that kind of being willing to say, I don't know, let's figure it out together. What do you think? I mean, like, I love Jesus. Anytime he gets asked a question, he either tells a story or asks another question. It's like, you're getting me like that.
I mean, how annoying though to always have another question put to you. Just give it to me straight.
Jesus. And then he's like, why don't you guys get it? Come on, disciples. They're like, just tell us the answer.
I know. So how did we get to where we've got to, where we're always so quick to answer? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. But I do think there's a, like, going back to kind of like the middle classness of youth groups. Like, and again, I'm a card carrying member of the middle class. I grew up in a working class environment, and like I'm still more comfortable in a pub than I'm a Pret a Manger, but like I'm in Berkshire, I drive a Volvo, for goodness sake, so I'm on the team. But there are ways in which, like, I don't know, knowledge is quite important. If you want to know, if you want to get better at something, know more about it. Even like, I was talking about generational studies, and a lot of youth workers, what we'll do is we'll learn loads about generational studies to learn more about our youth groups, when maybe we could just go and talk to our youth groups, you know what I mean? Because I suppose we perhaps tend to intellectualize things, whereas I see youth work as a craft. It's like youth work apprenticeships, I think, are the best thing in the world, because you just learn by doing, you get to know and be relational. And I hope that's like, I don't want to pick apart deep thinkers. Like, if that's your route, then that's great. I'm just not, maybe it's because I'm not a very deep thinker, Claire. Maybe that's
no, you put yourself down, because you say so much which is really thoughtful, and I mean, you might not be able to quote an author to tag along with it. You're saying stuff that you're a practitioner, but you can see that it is grounded in a thoughtful approach, and actually you're not contradicting some of the reading that there is out there, if you see what I mean. I like reading, so I am prone to that. But like, that's why I think I'm impressed by the stuff that you're sharing, because it resonates with what's happening on the ground, but it also resonates with the research and all that kind of stuff as well, whether you know it or not.
You'll have to tell me if it stops doing that, right?
I'll have a look of concern on my face. No, you're okay. So I'm kind of really interested, because I think that, not all churches, because I don't know all churches, but very few churches have been able to crack the whole mixing of the church-based youth work with their community-based youth work. So hopefully most youth workers that are connected with churches are doing stuff out in the community, but it kind of is a bit like two worlds. And then when they try to bring them together, it doesn't always, it's not the smoothest of journeys. And I wonder what your story is with that. How's it gone for you, and any learning that you can share?
Well, so, I tell you what, the first thing I say is I believe that it's possible. And I believe that young people are interested in God. And that sounds like a really simple thing, but we just write people off all the time. They won't want to know. They're not interested. They don't. And they do. And I think part of the reason I believe that is where I grew up. So my council estate church was super diverse in terms of you'd have doctors and lawyers and mechanics and cleaners and every sort of job, and unemployed, and people recovering from substance abuse issues, and young and old, and like loads of different ethnicities represented, and it was just the kingdom of God to me. I was just like, this is the kingdom, it's for everyone. And I think so. The one thing is that you've got to, let's not box God in, and maybe some of the reasons that we have this kind of, I don't know, community and church side, I don't know if that is some of our like our kind of neat, tidy church thing, and we're a bit happier with doing messy community stuff. I think, but so in my experience, it's a mess, and that's fine. And I won't say that we've cracked it. Like we've had to pause some of the stuff that we do here over COVID, but from September we had a good few months of running a pretty big youth club that my favourite thing about it was we had loads of young people from all areas of our community, and it was amazing. And we had, like, when we had behaviour problems, I was trying to say to our volunteers, that should be like one on our tick list. Like, if we never have behavioural problems, are we really doing it right? Are we reaching people that we want to reach? And actually, like at the end of our term, I want us to not celebrate the behaviour that was difficult, but that we're meeting these young people and not teaching them, showing them Jesus. So like, if there's a fight and you can show a way of forgiveness and reconciliation, and I remember speaking to someone who's just kind of like, what do you expect me to do? It's a scrap. Of course I had a scrap. And actually showing like a different way. And again, not teaching about it necessarily all the time, but providing the face, the flesh on those ideas. And we did teach, and if I'm honest with you, we just tried something different every week at this youth club to see what worked. Tried music, that was fun. And I think sometimes that worked and sometimes it didn't. I don't know. I would say the one thing that has worked at FEC in terms of the community stuff is like longevity with young people. So young people who have come in through kids stuff and even the preschool stuff and midweek things, and they just have a good relationship with the organisation, like the big church. And that provides space that if you can have a space where they know they can come if they need to, or that they'd like to come if they've had enough positive experiences where you run something and they'd like to come along, then that's really helpful. But I mean, I can't say that we really owned the clash of I had young people who were applying for Oxford and young people that were excluded from school, and how do you speak to those guys? And that can feel like they're like this, right? Yeah. But they're not, okay? Because they're desperate for validation. They need love. They need to know that they're valued and worth it. So we try to stick to those kind of things. Like, look at all these volunteers. They're here. No one's paying them. Do you know why they're here? Because you matter. You matter so deeply. You're so valuable. We think that's because you're made in the image of God. We think that God created you. He's got plans for you. And that might be the preach that week. Do you know? Just like, and it sounds really simple. But the person who's maybe flying and they're doing one of the faith, they might need to hear that just as much as the guy that's never opened the Bible. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know, I've waffled there a bit, maybe.
No,
Can you tell I ain't got the answers?
No, it's good. I used to always be so jealous of the volunteers, because when we did detached work, they could say, I'm doing this in my own time, whereas obviously I was being paid in some shape or form. And it really was kudos to them. Do you know what I mean? Like, the young people loved that people were choosing to spend time with them. And I always thought it was.
And even, I remember saying to the volunteers, like, you have no idea, guys. Matt, put yourself in that you're a 13-year-old young person, and things aren't going well. Home's difficult, school's difficult. You say bye, no one says bye at home. You kind of trudge to school. You're late to tutor because of whatever reason. They say, oh, you go to the next lesson. Maybe they're not pleased to see you. All right, and it's hard, and maybe there's whatever's going on. Oh, even going to a place where you come in and they know your name, they say, yes, you've come, how's it going? That communicates so much value and love. And actually, young people don't care about what you know until they know that you care. And like that, I don't know, that's like such a, just without that, what you say, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I also like to think, I think keeping the teaching from the front, I don't know, simple's the wrong word, because the deep things of God, they're simple and complex at the same time, right? They're simple to hear and they're hard to do. And I kind of like introducing those things simply, and then having the conversations about the complexities and how does it figure out. Because I think young people have got a pretty good nose for like, I don't know, if you're telling this incredible story and they're like, yeah, but you do you do it? Yeah. Do you do that? And that's a better conversation than just from the top, and I don't see you again.
That's so youth work, I think, in its kind of truest sort of form is conversation. It's always about a conversation, and going back to the answers, and another question continues the conversation and continues learning and continues growing. As soon as you give an answer, you stop the conversation. And and actually youth workers tend to be pretty good at asking those questions that keep it kind of the young person exploring what their options are, having it opened up in ways and things like that. So talking about your youth group and those that are like more church-based and those that are based in the community, how did the church-based young people receive them in the youth group? Were they pretty good at it, or was there a bit of a divide, and did friendship groups cross over in that way?
So I gotta say, I think it's fair to say that's fairly young and not massively right now. So that particular environment, where we've been really focused on how can we make this an exciting, welcoming space for like every young person in our community, that there's definitely like year groups and friendship groups. But I would say the cool thing is that they've been inviting friends to it, which is really cool. So I remember we had like a certain amount to the first one. I was telling the volunteers, like I was expecting 20 and maybe 35 came. I said, look, it will go down. And it just kept on going up week on week on week. So they definitely felt like it was a good place to invite. So young people from church were inviting people who maybe had not had a church experience, and the guys who'd not had a church experience, they were dragging more people along as well. So that was key. So I think to summarize, no, we haven't had, it's not like they've just all held hands and skipped around. I mean, no, COVID anyway, wouldn't allow that. But what has been a big win is finding that young people invite other young people. So not necessarily jumping across youth cultures and age groups and stuff like that, but definitely inviting more people to come along. It's still my hope and my dream that actually we will, because I think it's really important for young people to learn how to welcome people well. I just learn, that amazing thing of like just seeing the depth and the incredibleness of other people. When you meet someone from outside your sphere, or someone that you wouldn't have usually chatted to or hung around with. And again, this is probably something that I learned really, really young. Learning that people that you might not necessarily roll with on a day-to-day basis, that they're valuable, they've got input, they're fun, like they can, and actually you can learn from each other. Like I remember growing up and actually people who were perhaps on the outside of society. I remember one guy who just like you wouldn't mess with him, sort of tatted up, and people would give him like a wide berth and struggles in life, but he came to volunteer at church. And I remember just hearing his life story, and it blew my mind. It blew my mind. He'd been all around the world. He had this incredible life. And it made me think, man, how many people have missed out on that, on like just surface appearance? And how many times have I done that? And young people will miss out unless we can encourage that. The only thing is that you don't want to make it awkward, right? And you don't want to say, right, you have to be friends with them and they're talk to them. There's like a comfort and a security, and actually something really cool about a friendship group being tight. And I suppose it's just a big balance that I don't know the answer to.
No. But, okay, so some of the things that I'm kind of really hearing you say is, one is the importance of relationships. Actually, your volunteers are building relationships with the young people. They know them, they know their name, getting to know their story, and that's all really important. So you've created an environment which young people are welcomed into, and it's obviously fun. So they want to invite their mates to it. They've got confidence in whatever it is that's being put on, because they're scared.
And we feed them. That's it.
Food, the unifying.
Food. And I think that can be scary for you, because food's a big thing, and with word allergies and am I going to have to do it all? That's something you fucking thing, isn't it? It's like I'm already trying to do everything. I can't do food as well. But we found food at such a leveler. It's like you're all the same because you're all eating the same pizza or the same whatever. So we try and do like something that's kind of a meal.
Yeah. I know, that's great, gathering around food and stuff. Talk about, the asking of the questions rather than just giving answers. There's loads that we've covered loads. Now, one of the things, actually, maybe it comes back to the food thing that you did share at the conference in terms of the middle class thing is, or from where your background was, that actually the church was much more hospitable in terms of open door policy, much more so. And again, maybe because of safeguarding or what have you, we've just got loads more nervous around having people around our homes, and there's been a real loss to that with that.
Yeah, it's so difficult, isn't it? It's so tricky. And I've fortunately just moved in onto the same road as our church, which is great because I get to see young people 5 times a week just up and down the road, rather than seeing them once a week for maybe the 5 minutes we get in the chaos of the youth group. So I think that's been really cool. And actually, I think homes are a difficult one, and it is a bit of a minefield, but I think there are loads of like third spaces that work really well, like cafes, and we're fortunate to have a cafe. So one of my favorite things to do is just say, as a young person, and we'll talk to parents as well. Do you want to come in and just have a coffee and we'll catch up about how's it going? And like they, I don't know, like 15, 16, that can be like a really esteeming thing. It's not something they do all the time potentially. And it was different growing up. I did know everyone on my road, and I was in and out of everyone's house, so that was something that I had to get used to. And I don't know, I'm getting old now, so that might just be a thing of the past. It's hard to know what was like 20 years ago and what was like class culture. But actually, that was a big shock. I didn't think anyone liked me, because sometimes you'd go to someone's house and stay at the door, whereas growing up, you had to offer them a cup of tea. Otherwise, like mortal enemy, you still have to offer them a cup of tea. In our house, anyway, that was how we kind of rolled. So, that was. And I do love that messy hospitality that kind of is against the neatness of some of our environments. Yeah. That coming in, it doesn't have to be a dinner party. I mean, we're just doing life. Like, I've been meeting with uni students who are back, and they have to kind of put up with the madness of my house, of kids, a bit like the stuff we would have edited out, with my kids running in and out, and it's all going crazy. But there's something that's like, that means your family, doesn't it? Like, if you can go to the fridge and get your milk out for your cup of tea, then you're in. You're really in. And that, I love that. I really love that. And actually I found myself, I've set up, I've got my nice house now, actually having to really be intense with that. I'm like, no, this isn't yours, it's God's. God, what do you want to do with my house? What do you want to do with my car? How can I use that? How can we use every space to be a blessing to our community that we're in? It's a tension to manage, that one, isn't it?
I was going to say, I don't think we should let ourselves off by just saying, oh, safeguarding doesn't allow it. And I think we need to find a way through. And I know, like SCBA, we're kind of looking at what that might mean in terms of a policy, because I just think the church isn't a service provider. We are family. And if we then start being, it's all private, and this is, I love, this house is God's house. How can I use it for God? It's that kind of thing, isn't it? But I think, I mean, in the blinking early church, they were like sharing everything, like.
Exactly. Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think you're right. It's a tension. It's a challenge, but it's one that we need to be wrestling with, and not just kind of letting ourselves off the hook with.
Absolutely, yeah. And we can't use safeguarding as a way out of something that we're just doing because it's not comfortable. Do you know what I mean? And I think and the more responsibility you pick up in ministry or work in general, we tend to get more risk averse, right? The more we hold, the more we go, no, that's a bit scary. I'm responsible for more. I remember like being a volunteer, and I was just like doing crazy games with youth and being like, this is like spoonful of Tabasco sauce, like eat that, it's really hot, spicy. And now I'm the one going around like, no, don't do that, can't stop trying to gaffer tape that one to the wall. All stupid games used to get played. So I think that is a real thing to manage, and I don't know, it's a little bit easier for us with like the centre. There's always rooms, and like the public space sometimes makes that a bit easier. But please let me know where you come to on that, because I'm always up for stealing people's good ideas.
Oh look, it'll be there for everybody. It was meant to be my job. I was meant to do at 8:30 this morning, but I didn't. I don't know why I thought I was going to be all 8:30.
That's a great time for that, yeah.
I myself 30 minutes to write this. That didn't happen.
I mean, we've run a youth connect group here, and I have been amazed actually at the barriers that breaks down for young people, and the comfort that they find and the value that they bring to it. And the parents saying to me, this is like a highlight of their week. I was like, really? That's amazing. And I do think in a home that is so you have to, there's unique challenges to it, but there's also unique value to it as well.
When I used to do youth work with a mate of mine, Susan, and we kind of lived together as well, and we used to have like different small groups and these Sunday evening youth group all round, everything like that. And they used to, and it was so bad, really. Used to, without us knowing, leave different messages, change our answer. It was when we had landline, change our answer phone to some random message.
I love that.
And it was, but they were just very much at home kind of thing.
Yeah, that's good. I love that.
Yeah. And we were funny. Like we were like, it was a 2-bedroom, like, and then a kitchen and a lounge, and we played hide and seek with the young people in this really small thing. Like, and we lost one of the young people. We're like, how could we possibly have lost him? And he was on the windowsill.
Oh, I love it. I love, like, we play spoons and like you play throw burrito, and it's like in the moment of throwing this toy burrito at a kid's head, I realised I was like taking the game too seriously. You see like slow-mo ping off his head. Like, no, that is the game. If you haven't played that, guys, throw burrito is the one. But oh yeah, it's just
people remember that, don't they? They do remember that, the fun and the laughter, and it's, you know.
I still go when I'm back home in Portsmouth. There's my youth worker from when I was young. I still catch up with her at the place where we used to do youth, like at her place and grab coffee, and like that relationship's so valuable. And she's walked that with loads of people, and like the longevity there again, to go through the relationships, to go through young people who might deconstruct, reconstruct, like go through massive challenges in life. They might, like, mental health might be really big thing for them, and actually to not just do the start of that, but like for 5 years, walk through that with them in that relationship. It's like, it's a huge privilege, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely immense. I obviously don't do as much of the face-to-face stuff, and I miss it. And it's different seasons. Like doing it in my 20s was so different to my 30s, and I was in my 40s. It is different, but I think you can be a youth worker at any age. It's a total myth when they say you're too old, because you need all types of people, don't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. And like when I started youth work a few years ago, my best volunteer was a retired lady who just cared. She just remembered. She remembered everything about like. Everything they said to her. Next week's happened, praying for you. How did that go? And so young people would just they'd almost queue up for her. Do you know what I mean? Because she just valued them, and they just loved that. And she was funny. She sort of didn't hear quite often, and often like, oh, she's just awesome. Really, really cool. So that's my criteria for volunteers. People say, I mean, we go through a process, but right off the bat, I'm like, do you love God? Do you love young people? That's it. And like, and actually, with the guys that go, I'm not very cool. I'm like, good. It's someone that's like, I'm pretty cool. That's the one. You're like, no, sorry, mate.
No, that's great, Jamie. I could literally chat for ages with you, but I know time is pressing on, and you've got meetings and things like that. But thank you so much for making the time to share and just to chat all things youth work, which I forgot how exciting it is. It's brilliant.
Yeah, totally. No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right, cool.